everyone. Welcome to episode 1, part 2 of our maintenance phase podcast reaction. This is the very first episode of maintenance phase, What's Our Deal, part 2. And just one quick housekeeping note, and that is, because this is the first episode and I wasn't sure what to expect, I'm just going through this as a reaction and personal opinion sort of reaction, not with citation of evidence or looking in to their claims or their vague citations or anything like that. I'm not going full deep dive into that for this episode because I just didn't have that prepared from the outset, and this is just kind of getting a feel for what's going on. As I continue to cover these guys in the future, because I've decided that I'm going to just kind of start tacking this on to the end of my Year in the TikTok series, I'll have something more on standby to kind of look at their claims and their research and maybe do some quick research of my own and that sort of thing. But for this time, we're just kind of reacting. And without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump back into it.
Telling people cigarettes were bad for them did not work.
Right.
So to me, the primary goal needs to be changing the environment. And only 10% of kids today walk or bike to school. It used to be 50%. Very few people live close enough to their work that they can walk. Mm-hmm. That's another thing. We need denser housing. There's all kinds of other policies that we need to make it possible for people to live healthy lifestyles. Right now, it's not really possible to buy a bunch of fruits and vegetables and to saute broccoli for dinner unless you can afford it. So to me, I really have no interest in telling any particular individual you need to do X. It's really much more about let's just have a shitload of bike lanes to school and really wide sidewalks so that kids who want to walk to school can. And some kids aren't going to want to, and some kids won't be able to, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. The first thing has to be focusing on what can we do to help people. And I really don't think that there's any point in telling people for the 1 billionth time that apples are better for you than Snickers bars.
Totally. And also again, if we're looking at sort of creating a world in which it's possible for folks to make individual choices, right? We really like to focus in on personal responsibility. It's this weird moment when everyone becomes a hardline Republican,
I know.
Right? When we talk about fatness, everyone's personal responsibility, bootstraps, willpower, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So you guys have some points with systemic issues that definitely make it harder to combat obesity. It makes it harder to lose weight, and it makes it harder to live a healthier lifestyle. On the note of kids going to school, I think the issue is more than just accessibility of bikes and bike lanes and safer conditions for the kids to walk to school in terms of infrastructure. Something else that is a regular concern is the safety of the kids, not in terms of traffic, but in terms of bad actors. So there's also just some safety concerns for the kids outside of traffic concerns. And if a group of kids can walk together or bike together, that's great, but that's not the only way the kids can get exercise. Would that be great? Yes, but at the same time, we had something called a walking line when I was working at one of the elementary schools. Some schools have a walking line, some don't. But the ones that did have a walking line, it's for kids that live within a mile of the school. And I would walk a group of about 25 kids, about a half mile down the road, and then drop them off at this corner to finish the walk on their own to their homes. And there have been plenty of times where completely innocuous adults, but there are adults that end up walking the full way that we do. And it clearly, when I was seeing the kids off and one of them was continuing to walk behind the kids, some of the kids felt uneasy. I would stay there and just kind of monitor the situation until I couldn't see them anymore. And pretty much I was able to judge that the adults walking behind us would walk straight past the kids. There was no interest in bad action towards the kids. But there is that concern that the kids are aware of. And not only that, but the kids are pretty small, and also their backpacks are very heavy. There were a few times when, because you can't let first graders walk off by themselves, they either have to be with a sibling or their parents have to come and physically pick them up, or I have to walk them back to the school. When the first graders have to walk back to school, I offer to carry their backpacks because they're tiny kids and they need some help. And their fucking backpacks are fucking heavy. For first grade, they're fucking heavy. And walking the half mile there, and then we would have to walk a half mile back if their parents didn't come to pick them up. That's fucking heavy and difficult for the kids. So I don't think that... I mean, would it be great if all the kids could walk to and from the school or bike to and from the school and we had infrastructure in place for that? That would be great. But there's other issues around safety, and there's other issues around, like, I think backpacks are heavier than they were 30 years ago because of how much shit the kids have to carry around. There's other things at play than just walking, and I don't think that walking to and from school would necessarily combat childhood obesity that much. Would it help? Probably. Any exercise is good, pretty much, unless you're going completely extreme. But there's other things that can help. If we had more athletic after-school programs, even just like fun athletic, it doesn't have to be athletic. That's something that would need to be... There's other issues outside of that. And as for personal accountability, putting aside the children, as I said, if the kid is in elementary school, their control over their weight is virtually none because they don't have the ability to understand, they don't have any say in what food they eat, and they don't have the ability to go off on their own to get some exercise. So putting responsibility for weight on children is just unreasonable. For adults, there is a level... I'm not saying that it's not made significantly harder depending on where you are. It can absolutely be made significantly harder depending on where you are. But it is also... There is always a level of personal accountability in play. They even acknowledge that they don't know anyone that doesn't know that an apple is better for you than a Snickers bar. Okay, well then that choice being made of a piece of fruit... There's gas stations around here that sell fresh fruit. At least where I am. So, is it ideal? No, but there's ways to make those choices. I don't know. I think that while I'm all for acknowledging the issues in infrastructure and the issues around how our cities are built can exacerbate the obesity epidemic and the obesity problem. I think saying that, oh, none of it is a matter of personal choice or personal responsibility is a reach. We all make bad decisions. We all make bad food decisions. I ate a bag of Boom Chicka Pop yesterday. Not a good idea, but I ate it. Did pretty good for the rest of the week. But that was a moment where I fucked up. And I was 100% a personal choice I made. Bad choice? Yes, but it was a choice that I made, and that is a responsibility that is a choice I have to take responsibility for. Just as people that choose the Snickers bar over anything else that would be healthier have to take that responsibility as well.
Yeah. Should we talk about vocabulary briefly?
Yeah, what do you want to say about vocabulary?
I mean, just that whenever I talk about this, I do actually feel a little bit weird about this as like a thin dude talking about fat people. And I use the word fat because I have been asked to, and that is my understanding from people who are in these spaces who prefer to use the word fat rather than euphemisms like curvy or big boned or overweight or obese, which are really medicalizing. But it's also an interesting term because it's sort of in the process of being reclaimed that there are a huge number of people who do not feel comfortable self-identifying as fat.
Yeah, and some folks who are not fat, who have never been fat, who are very uncomfortable even hearing the word.
Totally, yes.
Yeah.
So, can you just talk about that a little bit?
So listen, the harm that comes to me as a fat person doesn't come because someone calls me fat. It comes much more often because someone refuses to call me fat and then treats me terribly anyway.
Oh, okay.
There's something that happens when I am with a person who is willing to say the word fat. I know that they are not so afraid of my body that they will just act out of their own weird biases, right? If someone is willing and able to say the word fat in good faith, right? That tells me that they are as much concerned with how I identify myself as they are with projecting their own beliefs about fatness and fat people onto me by calling me like fluffy or like more to love or whatever, right?
Right.
The sort of challenges that fat people face don't come from a word. They come from the ways that we treat fat people. And if we...
Okay, I just want to say something. I don't I'm glad that she's not hyper-focusing on language the same way I've seen other FAs focus on it, but you say that what affects you isn't the words, then why is there such an adverse reaction to obese? And if you're talking about the etymology of obesity and what it means, meaning to, have eaten oneself fat, that's beside the point. That is beside the point. There's this whole talk of language here around the word fat, but then that doesn't generalize to the other euphemisms or other words to describe someone who is overweight or obese or fat or whatever. It seems to only be around the word fat. And if you want to use the word fat as a descriptor for yourself, that's perfectly fine. It's not, my point isn't, no, we still shouldn't use the word fat. If you want to use the word fat, use the word fat. That's fine. I don't care. But then you also will demonize the word obese. Not this speaker in particular, but we've seen it in the FA community. If you want to focus on how fat people are treated, that's totally fine. I get that. There are people that harass fat people simply for being fat and going about their lives. And I worked with someone that was obese, severely so. Very nice guy. And he knew. He was middle-aged, he knew. And the amount of people that came up while he's just doing his job, giving him some advice on how to lose weight at his desk, was unwelcome, and they often didn't know when to stop. So I understand that concept of, just stop approaching people about their weight and giving unsolicited advice. I get that. But at the same time, you guys will still demonize, at least the fat acceptance community in general, will demonize doctors that label patients with obesity. So, I don't know, there feels like there's a bit of a contradiction there.
Can't talk about that in a direct and honest way. We are always going to fall short in addressing sort of what fat people need. And if we can't take direction from fat people in a conversation that is fundamentally about us, right? Like, part of what we're talking about here is that we have been talking for the last, 30 or 40 years about flipping out about fat people existing. And overwhelmingly, that conversation has happened without fat people's participation.
Right. Can I ask, how have you identified over the years?
Oh, around my body?
Yeah.
I just didn't for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
I totally remember having this experience at work. I spent years as a community organizer and political organizer. And I had this experience with a good friend of mine who was a coworker at the time. We were loading out boxes of materials from the state capitol. And we had these huge boxes that we were carrying just in our arms, right? We didn't have a hand truck or anything. We had to go up 2 flights of stairs to get the materials to where they needed to be. And I just looked at him and I was like, fuck it, I'm taking the elevator. And I went over and with my one free finger, right, pressed the up button on the elevator. And he looked at me and sort of grinned and went, "Is that why you're, large?"
Oh, wow.
He was a good friend, and he said it sort of with a twinkle in his eye. And honestly, my first response was absolute terror that he had noticed. I was so terrified that he had said anything about my size that I felt like my whole job in the world was to get people to forget that I was fat, which is an impossible task.
Yeah, I am 5'6". People are going to notice.
Right, totally. There's just sort of core physical characteristics that are going to follow us around. And I remember being first...
Once again, though, the height versus weight comparison isn't really a one-to-one comparison, because no matter what you do, you can't change your base fundamental height. I mean, you can wear shoes that make you look taller, you can do shit like that, but it's not the same as like changing your body structure to have more height to it. As to where with weight, you can absolutely diet and exercise to a point where you're in a smaller, have a smaller frame. Again, it's just not a one-to-one comparison.
Mortified that he had noticed, and then absolutely delighted that he had actually just said something.
That's interesting.
But that was the first time that I really started like talking about being fat.
Did it feel really good?
It felt immensely freeing.
Yeah.
Right? I had spent 20 some years hiding from my own body. That is an impossible task. Right? Like wherever you go, there you are.
Do you have like a coming out process now? Like when you meet new people, do you have like a way of telling them like this is a safe thing to talk about with me?
Oh, I just lead with it.
Oh yeah.
I'm just like, look, I'm fat and I'm queer.
Yeah.
I try not to shoehorn it into conversations, but I do try and make sure that it is present in my first couple of conversations with someone to just let them know that I'm fat and that I don't have weird baggage around talking about it. I don't, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel emotionally heavy to me to talk about being fat. And actually it feels incredibly liberating.
It is very interesting because I feel like we have in our brains this coming out narrative for gay people, but the coming out process for a fat person is like, there isn't really a script for fat people to do it. And there isn't really a script for like non-fat people to sort of react to it.
Totally.
I don't know. I don't really care for the coming out narrative in terms of fatness. There's something about it that feels definitely like it's borrowing from the queer community as a way to legitimize their movement again. And I could be overreading into that, but it's something that rubs me the wrong way, and I don't really like it. Because you don't really have to come out as fat. We can, not to be a bitch, but we can see it on you. You don't have to come out as fat. And if you own it or whatever, you don't have to broadcast that. We can see it in your demeanor. I mean, if you want to, go ahead. There's just, I don't know. I just don't really care for the comparison and the acting like fat is something you come out as. I don't know. I don't care for that.
We're totally not used to it. And what usually happens in that moment, if you have like a concerted conversation that is like, look, I'm fat. I'm not trying to lose weight because that has never worked for me.
Right.
And I'm just going to be a fat person. That what usually happens in that conversation, it feels very reminiscent of my like coming out conversations in the 90s around being queer, which is thin people will then unleash their many anxieties about becoming fat onto you.
Oh my God,
Right.
That's like when I used to tell my teenage guy friends that I was gay and they'd be like, sometimes I watch gay porn, man. And I'm like, we don't need to go there for this. Or like one time in boarding school, a dude gave me a hand job. I'm like, I don't need to know. We're both interns. We don't need to share this.
I will say one crossover question that I get both for being fat and for being queer is, how do you have sex?
Oh my
The
God.
number of people who just want to know, like, how does it work? Right? Like, it's truly just like people's id just jumps out.
Yeah.
And they're like, here's a thing that I can't control that I have to say to you right now.
Right.
No, there's not really that kind of script for coming out. There's not really a script for reacting to it.
Because I feel like people are used to the sort of like the fat person who makes like self-deprecating jokes about being fat. Like that's a script that most of us are familiar with. But I think the thing that people find really threatening is I am fat and I am not trying to lose weight.
Yeah.
That as a concept is weirdly like really fucking triggering for like non-fat people. It's
Honestly, I don't think it's as triggering as you think it is. I think because often what comes with I'm not trying to lose weight as a fat person, what's tacked on to that in conversation, at least in my experience with seeing this, and I even had a coworker, this is like 5 years ago before I even knew what fat acceptance was. This person was clearly in the fat acceptance movement. She tried to convince me that, weight was 100% genetic and all of that shit. And that's the kind of thing that's paired with I'm fat and I'm not trying to lose weight, is the, fat is 100% genetic. There's no way to control the weight. I've done all sorts of diets and I'm just not capable of losing weight. It's that narrative that people will then push back against because it's just wrong. Like acting like your body doesn't adhere to the laws of thermodynamics is going to prompt some opposition no matter what you do, because it's just wrong. And that's what I think would trigger people more than you being a fat person not trying to lose weight. What you do with your body is none of my goddamn business. But if you're going to try to push a false narrative and false facts and try to put forth things that simply are not true, not scientifically true, not logically true, none of that shit, then yeah, I'm going to push back and I'm going to have some opinions on what you're doing. If you're just like, I'm fat, oh, I'm not on a diet, I'm not interested in losing weight, I'm happy the way I am. I'm not saying that there aren't going to be the busybodies that still try to recommend shit to you. There are. But in general, I don't think that you'll have the mad, like, angry reaction quite so much. It's that generally when you say I'm a fat person, I'm not trying to lose weight, you pair it with other shit like weight is genetic, it's impossible for me to lose weight. You use language like that makes people go, no, that doesn't, it doesn't work like that. And that's what creates the back and forth, and that's what creates the frustration, at least to me.
Fascinating.
People have such strong reactions to a fat person who is not actively performing shame, either in the form of self-deprecating jokes or pratfalls or like any of that kind of stuff, or in terms of, I promise you I ate a salad, to like reporting out to them, right? Like thin people often expect that fat people will report out what we are eating, how we...
No. I've never met anyone that expects a fat person to report what they're eating and what they're doing. It's none of anyone's business. I'm not saying that it's impossible for those people to, like, exist, but I'm sure they do. But the vast majority of people, I don't think, expect you to report to them what you're eating and stuff. Like, people are far more invested in their own lives generally, that they're not going to be concerned with the minutia, like what you had for lunch. I think that that's more of a reaction, an insecurity reaction from the fat person, and then they project when they realize that they don't want to do that anymore, rather than re-examining themselves, realizing that that's an insecurity impulse that they do. They blame the person that's thinner than them, saying, well, they expect this of me. I honestly don't think that most people would expect someone who's fat to report to them what they're eating or how their progress is. Most people aren't that concerned about it. They have shit going on in their own lives.
We are exercising, how it's going, how much weight we've lost, right? Like those are the first things that they need to hear from us in order to engage further at all.
Yeah.
It's real wild. I'm curious about, you mentioned sort of response to your article. Like here I am talking about sort of coming out, quote unquote, as a fat person. I'm super curious about sort of like, what were the kinds of responses that you got?
Oh my God. Many of the responses were like people sharing their personal stories, which were like, I was like weeping, reading emails. I was writing people back. Like the sort of emotional response from actual fat people was extremely gratifying, and it seems like it touched people, which makes me really happy. But then the response from non-fat people, I don't know if you get these, but I got probably 50 or 100 emails from older, like 40 to 70-year-old dudes, all of which were like, no. I have it figured out. What the fat people don't know is there's actually this system, and then they would walk through this like Baroque fucking clockwork diet thing that they had figured out. And it was like, eat like no more than 600 calories before 7 a.m. and then switch to only carbs and then protein at night. Like some of them were like 8 pages long, and all the diet plans were fucking nuts, dude. It was like eat nothing but venison on Wednesdays and then like collard greens on like Thursdays from 7 to 8.
Yeah, I mean, like the other thing that I get, and I don't know if you get this, I'm sort of like exploring this lately, is the you've got blood on your hands.
Oh. Oh, see, I didn't get that as much.
So I get a lot of like, you're killing people.
Glorifying obesity. I got a lot of the glorifying obesity one. That was great. Which is fascinating because nobody ever talks about glorifying thinness, which is what we do all the time. And like, we know how damaging it is to glorify thinness to the extent that we do. But no, it's like, that's fine because thinness.
No, there's been, like, depending on the country, there are places where models are required to meet a certain BMI standard in terms of the weight they need to have on them in order to not promote scary levels of thinness to young people. Like, there are things being put in place about the overglorification of excessive thinness. And in general, I think the more focus there's been, especially in like the last 10 years, has just been on a healthy body weight. Like, everyone's seen Eugenia Cooney, and everyone thinks that she needs help. There's extremes on both sides, but I don't think that the insanely thin people are glorified the way you think they are. There is a glorification of obesity in the fat acceptance movement. Not all fat acceptance creators, but enough of them do glorify obesity. And there are, I'm sure, some pro-ED groups that glorify and like try to push the glorification of excessive thinness. But the vast majority of ED communities that I've seen, it's more like, this is what I want for me, regardless of how problematic it is. I don't care, this is what I want. But there's not that pushing on other people, at least not from my experience, not from what I've seen. Unlike fat acceptance, where it's like, if you try to lose weight at all, you're a bad person. Like, it's they do put this morality on, like, by saying you're fat phobic and shit for trying to intentionally lose weight. So that's where my issue comes in more with it. If you're like, I'm fat and I am what I am and this is just me, that's fine. It's the pushing of, you should find me sexually attractive. It's the pushing that any intentional weight loss is fat phobic, and therefore you're pushing diet culture narratives, even if you're trying to do it for your doctor. Like, it's just, it's not a one-to-one comparison that I feel they're trying to make it.
This is healthy, right? Like, all the eating disorders that like fucking teenage girls are getting, totally fine, you know, because thinness is good. But glorifying obesity, like, that's really dangerous.
Yeah. And also glorifying obesity, quote unquote, like, that is a response to one of two things. It's either work like mine that's like, hey, maybe treat fat people more like people.
Right.
Or it's like a fat person posts a picture of themselves at the beach on their personal Instagram account. And
that is such a misrepresentation of the people that I've seen accused of glorifying obesity. The vast majority of them are pushing some narrative like it's fat phobic for people to try to intentionally lose weight, or that the body doesn't adhere to the law of thermodynamics, or it's this pushing of eating whatever feels good in the moment. Like, it's that sort of thing. In general, from the people that I've seen that are said to be glorifying obesity, not once has it been someone that is genuinely just living their own life, posting pictures of themselves at the beach and just enjoying and having a good time. There are, don't get me wrong, those people that are just doing their own thing will still face harassment, but I haven't seen those people being accused of glorifying obesity the way that people in the FA community that are genuinely glorifying obesity and pushing the narrative that any intentional weight loss is fat phobic and trying to create this morality sphere on anything related to weight loss are doing. Like, there's a difference there. I have not seen someone that is just at the beach. They'll still face harassment. I've still seen them face harassment, but not the accusation of glorifying obesity, in my experience.
And people are like, you're glorifying obesity. And I'm like, yeah. I don't know, man.
It's literally Lizzo, like, riding a bicycle. Like, everybody relax. It's just like Lizzo having an enjoyable day. And then all the comments are just fucking poisonous.
Yes. Any picture of a fat person engaging in any kind of physical activity, showing any kind of skin, or with any kind of food in frame with them
Oh, yeah.
are all glorifying obesity.
I mean, that's the
right?
thing of like not trying to lose weight though, of like just the image of a happy fat person. It's amazing to me how threatening people find it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm fat, I'm in a bikini, I'm on a beach, I got a hot dog. It's like that is enough to send people into this like spiral of rage. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. This is like the white whale, right? of my like writing and research is to figure out what that is about.
What is your answer to that? Do you have a theory?
I've had a few theories over time. So early on, one of my thoughts was, oh my God, you feel like you have had to work so hard and be so vigilant to stay thin. And you've been so terrified of being fat that you've done all of this work to avoid being fat. And now you're seeing a person who actually is fat and is doing fine, and it makes you mad.
Right.
Another one of the theories was, this one feels closer to the mark to me, but not quite it, that like the way that people talk to me as a fat person, right? Like people like shout things from passing cars, right? Like that's the level that we're operating at. And I've heard from other fat people, and particularly people who are fatter than I am, who will talk about people throwing trash at them and stuff
For
like that.
fuck's
Really.
sake.
I think in some cases, people are talking to me as their nightmare future self, that they object so strenuously to my body, that they get so strident and kind of mean, frankly, about like how to diet and you have to do this and da-da-da-da. There's like such energy behind it that I'm like, oh, you are talking to yourself.
I actually think so much of the blame for that kind of shit, I mean, obviously goes to the people doing that, but also to like public health messaging. I mean, the sort of the basic presumption of every, you know, billboard, eat 5 fruits and vegetables a day poster we've ever seen in our lives is it is bad to be fat and fat people are unhealthy.
Okay, so there's two things going on here. Like, the harassment of people shouting things from cars and throwing trash, that has happened. I've seen that not the throwing trash, but I've seen people call out from cars just to be assholes to people who are heavier. Totally seen that. That's a thing that happens. I think that her assumption is not getting at the root of anything. Because you're projecting thoughts. This isn't research. This is you just kind of projecting thoughts. It'd be worth trying to see if you can track those people down, have a conversation with them, but that's also like incredibly unrealistic, and I get that. But I don't think that that's getting nearly at the heart of it the way you think it is. As for public messaging and portion control and eating fruits and vegetables and all of that, that is not in, and this is where you lose people, where you're blaming the promotion of health messages of proper portion control, eating fruits and vegetables, getting the right amount of exercise, XYZ, as part of your oppression. This is where you lose people. This is where you're like, see, it's saying that fat is bad, which makes people feel empowered to attack fat people. Those are not one-to-one at fucking all. And the thing is that plenty of the FA community has accused me of harassment, when 90% of what I cover are fat acceptance talking points. It's an ideological argument that I'm providing a counter-ideological point to. And yet you call it harassment. I understand that I've made unnecessary comments in the past, and that's part of the reason why I'm not doing that so much anymore. Because, no, I want it to be very clear. I am not harassing you because you're fat. I am not harassing you, period. I'm providing a counter-ideological point to your talking points and your accusations of the general public and people who are against morbid obesity. You're not... The blaming of public health messages for harassment people face and how that's somehow a bad thing to put out, promoting public health messages of eating fruits and vegetables and exercising and all that, that is what hurts your movement. That is what makes people roll their eyes and think fatty just wants cake. Like, that is where that comes from. That is where you are losing people, right there.
healthy, there really aren't any positive messages about like leave fat people alone or like fat people are fine or somebody else's health is none of your business. All of us.
Because fat people aren't fine. And I agree with the other people's health are none of your business. The leaving fat people alone is a social message, not a health message. I understand that doesn't help the people who are victims of that harassment, but those are two different spheres. The Department of Health is only concerned with promoting healthy messages, not necessarily the controlling other people's actions or the promotion of pro-social behavior. They are looking at pro-health behavior. And what people take from that, and I'm honestly not convinced that the promotion of healthy messaging is what contributes to fat people's harassment. People that harass fat people, calling them from cars, throwing trash at them, aren't influenced by the public good messages. I don't think that they are. They are likely looking for some sort of agency in their own lives, or their I don't know. Because I've never like called someone a name from a car. I've never thrown trash at someone. So I don't know the thought process that goes into that. But I don't think that the promotion of healthy messaging really plays a whole role into that at all. That doesn't make sense to me.
Have grown up in this just toxic sludge of like being fat is the worst possible outcome for you.
We have sort of been so careless with the way that we talk about fatness and fat people that we are now at the point that instead of, when we talk about health risks, we're actually talking about people.
Right.
And when we talk about people, we're talking about them as if they are health risks, right? Like human health risks. And of course, that's going to have a huge impact.
I need some expansion on that point. What do you mean talking about people as if they are health risks? I'm not making, that's not clear enough for me. I need that to be expanded on.
Yeah.
On, the lion's share of Americans who have BMIs that put them in the overweight or obese categories, right? That's most of us at this point.
I mean, I have interviewed public health professionals about this and sort of put this argument to them. And the answer that I have gotten back, and I think this has really become the sort of standard answer from public health, is this idea that like, okay, weight stigma is bad, but it's okay to stigmatize the condition, like obesity is bad, but without stigmatizing individual fat people. And I think that is impossible. I don't think that in a billboard campaign that is like presenting a very simple message, right? Eat vegetables or else you will become fat. There is no way to do that in a way that is not going to make people think that must mean that every single fat person refuses to eat vegetables.
Yes.
Right? There's no...
No, I don't know. Oh my God. That's such a leap that I don't think anyone over the age of 25, and 25 is being generous. I mean, I could see that leap in logic made with children and maybe some teenagers. But the promotion of eating healthy vegetables, I've never seen it be in the frame of eat fruits and vegetables or else you'll get fat. It's more like eating fruits and vegetables is a way to, one, be healthy, and two, maybe help control your weight. But it's not that like dichotomy of fruits and vegetables make you thin and people who are fat clearly don't eat fruits and vegetables. I don't think that at all. I don't know most people that think that way. The general consensus is that chances are fat people are eating a lot more processed food. Doesn't mean that they can't eat fruits and vegetables, but it means that there's probably some other food that they're eating that is not good for them and is very calorie dense. Because if fat people are primarily eating fruits, vegetables, and lean meats, they would not be, their morbid obesity wouldn't be a thing. But that's this idea of, if you say eat so many fruits and veggies as a way to control your weight, but most likely with health messaging, it's a way of promoting healthy eating. It's not even necessarily saying you'll become fat or not. It's just, this is the healthy way to eat. that then that's going to turn around and say, well, fat people clearly don't eat any fruits and vegetables, and therefore they're bad, or some shit like that. That's a serious leap that they're making. That's honestly the amount of claims that they put here is just bonkers sometimes.
Way to not send that same message at the same time.
And it's extremely, like, there are so many parts of our conversation around like fatness and fat people that feel like echoes of our conversations around gayness and gay people and transness and trans people, which is we are spinning our wheels for so long on two very basic, very terrible strategies, right? One is love the sinner, hate the sin, right?
Yes.
This belief that you can reject a core part of who someone is and how they move through the world, but still somehow embrace them. Mm-hmm. We have seen time and time again that this does not work and that it is deeply alienating and stigmatizing.
Right.
And the other one that we spend a ton of time on is this idea that like it's a choice.
Right.
Thin people will continue to behave terribly toward fat people until they feel personally convinced that it is not a choice.
Right.
And no amount of data will do that convincing, right? The only times that I have really seen thin people turn around on this is like the experiences that you're talking about, right? Of like seeing someone very close to you diet for a super long time, seeing how hard they try over the course of years and how terribly they are treated. That is actually like the only thing that I'm aware of that meaningfully turns thin people around on this stuff.
That's dark.
It's super dark. And I know from being a queer person who has done organizing around queer and trans rights for like a decade plus, that like we will spend years stuck on that conversation. And it has absolutely nothing to do with whether or not it's a choice. It is a code word for I'm not comfortable with you yet.
Somehow people are convincing themselves that like yelling at a fat person from their car is like less of a moral transgression than like being fat. Do you know what I mean? Like you can maintain your self-conception as a good person even while you are literally as an adult bullying other people. You're like, no, but her being fat, that's bad. Me shouting at a random stranger from my car, that's chill.
Not only that's chill, but like the number of people who say garbage things to me and then look so proud of themselves.
I know. Yeah, it's like, oh, I must. Like, oh, I would be remiss if I didn't tell this person to lose weight. Ridiculous.
I did my good deed for the day. I yelled at a fat person and that helped them, right? Like that is the belief.
This is when you're projecting a lot onto the thought process of others. I don't know. This is something I want your guys' opinion on, because I'm really having a hard time commenting on this specifically because it is so personal, but at the same time I feel like there's a lot of projection, like thought crime projection onto others that you don't really, it's like you don't really know what they're thinking. And we've seen with FAs accuse others because of a particular look, that they had this whole narrative going on in their heads that wasn't there. So I don't know, like it's a lot of projection for me.
Here is that like my abuse is to make you the best you,
right?
Versus what I'm doing is abuse, right? Like by any stretch of the imagination, shouting at people from a passing car, that is an abusive thing to do.
The only times that it is appropriate to do that is when somebody has a cute dog and you say, hello, little friend.
I would love it.
Then it's
I would
okay.
love it. I mean, like I tweeted about this recently that I was wearing sort of like workout clothes when I went to walk my dog, and someone's like stopped me to be like, good for you, you'll get there.
I know, I saw you tweeting about that and like my entire face just like collapsed in on itself with a cringe. I was just like, whoa, like galactic cringe.
Totally. And that was a person who was absolutely like, she sort of puffed out her chest and was like smiling really big. Like, we did it. We're doing it. You're working out. I'm complimenting you for working out.
Oh my God.
Like, this is not a workout, ma'am.
Don't.
I'm walking around 2 blocks.
She should have said, hello, little friend. That's the key.
So, not so much a comment on someone calling, I honestly think that it's not exclusive to fat people, the celebration of someone doing exercise or anything like that. There's a lady, she used to live in my neighborhood on the path that I walked my dog, and she had a whole home gym in her garage, and she would often have the garage door up, and we could see her working out when me and I would often walk my dog with a couple of others, and whenever we walked past her and we saw her working out, we would clap and cheer. She was very fit. She wasn't fat in the slightest. She's thinner than I am. And it's just a matter of cheering people on from the perception of them trying to better themselves. Same thing when you see someone going in for a test and you're like, yeah, go. Or like I had an interview this week and the janitor was really sweet. He came by and he goes, are you here for an interview? And I said, yeah. And he goes, good luck. I wish you the best. And I think it's just a matter of attempting at pro-social behavior, and clearly it didn't land. But I don't think that that's indicative of some nefarious thought of, oh, this fat person is clearly trying to lose their fatness, and so therefore I feel good cheering them on because I'm helping them get over their fatness and encouraging them to do the right thing. I think it's just a matter of whenever we see someone trying to do something that looks hard for them, we want to offer encouragement. That's like, I've done that with plenty of people, just complete strangers, as we walk by. If you walk by a gym and you see a bunch of people on the treadmill, you look at them and you make a bunch of cheering motions and clap and all that, and it's just something that you do. Like, it doesn't matter whether they're fat or thin. They're doing something that's difficult or that takes self-discipline. So you cheer them on. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's exclusive to fat people to do that. That was an effort that didn't land, and that's fine. But I don't think I don't think the lady was making a judgment on you as a fat person as much as you think she was. And regardless of whether you were only walking 2 blocks and you may not have viewed it as a workout, it was still movement. It was still an effort, a physical effort made on your part, and taking your dog for a walk does require discipline. There's many people that don't take their dogs for a walk. And so I don't know. I just don't have the same perspective on it that she does. Was the woman cheering her on because she viewed it as a fat person making an effort to lose weight? Probably. But I don't think that was... I don't know. I don't think she was puffing her chest out and thinking super highly of herself the way you think she was. It's not, and for some people, it's just part of the culture where when you see someone do something that looks hard for them, you cheer them on.
Totally, just say your dog is adorable,
Yeah.
which he is. That would be correct.
What did you say to that person, actually?
I just waved and kept moving. I didn't say anything because I was just like, I'm not going to see this person ever again, right? Like, there's a calculus. It's a little bit of organizer brain, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, how deep is my investment in this person in our relationship? And how much energy do I want to put into it consequently, right? Like, I also had a person a few years ago stop me on the street and without even saying hello, just said, hey, have you heard about this weight loss surgery clinic down the street? They're really good, right? Like, that was another person who absolutely felt like they were doing their good deed for the day.
Yeah.
If that had come from a family member or a close friend or a coworker or someone who I was going to see more often, and or if I felt like I was in a place of really being ready to tackle it, then I would.
Yeah.
In both of those cases, I was like, I am literally passing you by on the street. I am not spending time on this or on you.
That's like an emotional labor thing, too, of do you really want to stop and spend 45 minutes? Like, actually, the peer-reviewed literature doesn't indicate that weight and health are perfectly correlated. Like, it's not your job, and it's exhausting, and you have other things to do today.
Totally. I mean, I will say there are times when I have done that with people on the street, couple years ago, it was 106 or something in Portland, Oregon, which is where I live. So I walked to work and was wearing a sleeveless dress. And I was walking past a coffee shop outside my office. And this guy, I would just walk past this guy and he just went, nobody wants to see that.
Ah.
And I was just like, first of all, what are you doing? This is absurd. And I turned around and I just said, it's 106 degrees today. What do you think I should be wearing?
Yeah, fuck that guy.
And he got really sheepish and he just went, not that. I was like, okay.
Did you think about giving that guy a noogie? Just getting him under your arm and just rubbing his head with your knuckles? I think that would be...
Just full wedgie.
Was there a toilet nearby? Could there be a twister situation?
Swirly.
Yeah. I think you need to have those in your arsenal.
We're talking a lot about weight stigma here. And I also think there's something else that we're going to talk about here, which is the role that capitalism plays in our understandings of health and wellness, right? That like a lot of the things that we think of as like tried and true public health knowledge as just like people out in the world is actually like a direct result of advertising campaigns, right?
Yeah, electrolytes. It is Gatorade marketing that has taught you that you need to drink a sports drink. That's not real. You can have a banana or a glass of water. It's fine.
Yeah.
Well, no, let's talk about that for a moment. They're called sports drinks for a reason. They are marketed towards people that do a lot of activity, athletes. It's a very, like, working in the education system, there's a lot of my coworkers that have kids in the high school now, and a lot of their kids are on sports teams, and they've even been taken to the doctor. They can't hold on to their electrolytes when they're working out so much, so they need those sports drinks. I had something not too long ago where I was sick, I had a fever, and it was really hot outside, and I was sweating excessively to the point where I was experiencing something that I can only say was akin to low electrolytes. I was drinking a lot of water, but I wasn't replenishing the electrolytes. And even on my watch, like, my heart rate was out of control, and I was very lightheaded. And I drank an electrolyte drink, and eventually, like, it took me a couple of days to figure out what the issue was, because I thought I was just feeling bad because I was sick. But I had an electrolyte drink, and it made such a big difference. I was actually able to rest properly. So they're saying that electrolytes are 100% just marketing, and I mean, does every person that goes on a walk need a Gatorade? No. Do they need an electrolyte drink? No. But there are those of us that may be doing work, be it outside, or they're working on something, or if they're sick and they have a fever or something, and they're sweating excessively, and they're drinking a lot of water to replenish those fluids, but not taking in more electrolytes, be it they just don't have the convenience of anything close by that would replenish, like eating a banana or what have you, that's not available to them. That's what the electrolyte drinks are for. It's maybe a little over marketed, but there is a place for those, just even in everyday society, depending on the type of work that you have, how hot it is, do you have a fever, are you moving a lot to where you're increasing your perspiration? Like, electrolyte drinks have their place in both athletics and in everyday society. It just kind of depends on the work that you're doing. I think construction workers probably need an electrolyte drink. If they're working in the summer, it's hot, they're sweating a lot, they're doing a lot of hard labor, they probably need an electrolyte drink. It's dependent on the person, but sometimes simply drinking water isn't enough, and being able to stop and eat something isn't always an option depending on your job. Sometimes you need something that you can take a quick drink of, and that's where electrolyte drinks come into play.
Probiotics are important in your digestive tract, and we don't know how to change the bacteria composition in your gut. There's all this stuff that we...
Oh, okay, wait, because yes and no. Again, yes and no. There are, if you regularly have upset stomachs, I had, when I was a kid, it was triggered by my anxiety a lot, but I would have a lot of upset stomachs, and having some probiotics just kind of helped with things, even when it was originated from like an anxious stomach ache. The probiotics still helped. Anytime I've needed an antibiotic, my doctor told me to take additional probiotics, and it did help with some traditional side effects that you can get from antibiotics that are generally harmless but very unpleasant. So probiotics do have their place as well. There are people that also just have digestive issues where probiotics also help. It's, again, dependent on the person. And does everyone need a probiotic? Maybe, maybe not. That's for their doctor to decide. But I don't think that the promotion of probiotics in and of itself is necessarily an issue. I think it's good that people are at least aware of these, similar to electrolytes. They are aware of it. Just like again, this is way oversimplification, and I don't think demonizing electrolyte drinks and probiotic supplements is a good thing to do, because there are people that benefit from them. Like, I understand that they might be over-marketed, but it's kind of like with disability aids. Over-marketing and oversaturation allows for easier access to those that need it.
We so want to believe that we can exert a level of control over our own individual health.
Mm-hmm.
And like what we know and what disability justice activists have taught us for a long time is that health is a privilege, it is an accident, and it is necessarily sort of transitory, right?
That is way oversimplification. No. Disability advocates, when they talk about health being a privilege, it's in the context of chronic illnesses that people have no control over getting, or just general health issues that people have no control over. High blood pressure, high cholesterol, pre-diabetes is stuff that you can exert some control over with proper diet and exercise and other lifestyle changes. Like, I think acting as though what disability advocates are advocating about and putting that in the realm of fat acceptance, and that any health issues around fatness, it's being thin is a privilege. And so, like, that whole thing that they're clearly aiming for is a misrepresentation of what disability advocates actually put forth. If you can, I don't think most disability advocates would say that health is a privilege, in that, yeah, you could make efforts to make this situation better, but you shouldn't have to, and it's a privilege for those that do make those efforts, or something like that's not. I don't think being thin is the level of privilege that you think it is. Like, there are benefits to being thin, but there's also, and there are some people that just it's easier just in how they're built a little bit, and maybe they didn't have that base of comforting themselves with food as a kid, so it's easier for them to not like fall back into that habit or anything, because that habit was never established. I can totally get behind all of that, but it does come down to choices and lifestyle choices and changes that would help moderate your weight. That's not the same as a disability that the person had no control over getting.
Right?
Yes. I would also say that actual health advice, like the things that we know from various peer-reviewed studies and don't have tens of millions of dollars in marketing.
Various peer-reviewed studies that are apparently independent, but I'm not going to cite. Okay.
Campaigns behind them are extremely boring.
Mm-hmm.
There is a vast array of healthy diets in the world, right? Like, there are healthy Japanese people, there are healthy Greek people, there are healthy Ugandan people. These are countries with wildly diverse diets. And we know that humans can be healthy with very different mixes of food, mixes.
Yes, but I guarantee that healthy Japanese people, healthy Greek people, or what was the last one? I missed the last one. Ugandan people probably aren't, the healthy people in those areas probably aren't over consuming highly processed, high fat, high sugar foods. And I want to be clear, I'm not demonizing fat, like dietary fat. I'm just saying that saturated fats, or there's other unhealthy types of fats that are in, like, potato chips, and fried foods and that sort of shit, probably not be represented in those healthy people in those areas.
Of macro ingredients, there's not going to be a single thing that is bad for you. There is no such thing as a superfood. In general, the most important thing is finding.
The superfood is based on nutrient density, antioxidant density, that sort of thing. Those things are there. The superfood label is a little subjective. I'm not going to lie about that. But in general, the things that are labeled superfoods, like blueberries, are just things that are healthy to eat anyway.
foods that you like, and all of the stuff you already know is good for you, and all of the stuff you already know is bad for you is bad for you, and it's fine to eat stuff that is bad for you. Like, if you want a brownie, have a fucking brownie. Like, there's not going to be like this acai berry, I'm probably mispronouncing that even, that like some weird smoothie that you drink that is all of a sudden going to make you healthy, or you're going to cut this one thing out of your diet unless you have like a specific food allergy. Cutting one thing out of your diet or only eating one particular thing is not going to be the road to wellness. Like, that isn't.
That is such an anti bettering yourself state. I fucking hate that, because that's how I've been making progress with myself and my own health. Is yes, you remove one thing at a time. That's part of a lifestyle change. That's part of making healthier choices. I guarantee cutting out soda will make you feel better. Cutting out, and even like, for the most part, I've cut out soda. I have one Diet Coke a week. And even before that, I was only drinking Diet Coke. But I cannot tell you how much better I feel not drinking soda every day. Cutting out one thing is it is the beginning of the road to wellness. It is not the entirety of the road to wellness, but it is the first step. The road to wellness is a series of small steps that, oh my god, that bothered me so fucking much. Because it is these single steps, these small tiny steps that add up over time. I have issues with taking in too much processed sugar. I know I do. And right now I'm only able to maintain 1 day a week where I don't eat any processed sugar. It's hard. And I haven't been able to move on to 2 days a week yet. It's just one of those things where you keep working at it until it becomes second nature, and then you can add on to it. When I started first working out, I only did 5 minutes at a time. Now I do 20 minutes 3 days a week. You can build on these things, but it starts with that first tiny step that seems ultimately insignificant. I hate that. I fucking hate that whole line right there.
Really how our bodies work.
Well, it's also all very like Ponce de Leon, right? It's all very Fountain of Youth, right?
Oh, yeah.
That what we are addressing is not our actual health needs. What we are addressing is not specific concerns about our own family history of X, Y, or Z condition. Right. We are addressing our own fear of aging. We are addressing our own profound fear of disability. And we are addressing our own fear of our own mortality, all of which are part of being human.
Okay. Not denying that those don't play roles, avoiding early death. That, yes, the fear of your own mortality, but I don't see why, like, if you eat healthier and get more exercise, you live longer and have a better quality of life. And that goes into the disability thing. There are disabilities that are age-related, that are completely unavoidable, genetic, what have you. But then there are also disabilities that are related to conditions like weight that can be mitigated. So why wouldn't you want to do that? Why wouldn't you want to do that? And as for youth, yeah, kind of, depending on the person, I want to feel young, and by that I mean I want my body to feel like it's still full of energy and stuff. And the way to do that is by leading a healthier lifestyle. My energy levels have gone up since I've been exercising and eating better. It's all part of, like, you have, yes, those things probably play a role, but then there's just the general core of feeling better, and things are a little easier physically because you were taking care of yourself like this.
And there's also the thing that people do not owe you healthiness.
Yeah.
If you're interested in your health and you really want to eat the healthiest diet that you can, like, that's great. People have different hobbies.
Yeah.
But I think the only extent to which we're going to give specific advice on this show is to not assume that your body is going to be relevant for other people's bodies. That, like, maybe you have a vegetarian diet and you love your vegetarian diet and, like, you have a ton of energy and you're super happy with it. Great. Other people are not going to feel that way. And just because you are really diligent about getting your 5 fruits and vegetables a day doesn't mean that other people want to be diligent about that or have to be diligent about that.
Or can.
I mean, especially for
Yeah.
cost, but also like for various disability reasons. A lot of people cannot do the things that you can do or don't want to do the things that you want to do. And it's fine to tell people about like the health behaviors that you have without thinking or implying that they should do those too. Like it's completely fine for you to tweak and mess with and optimize your health as much as you feel fit. But other people don't want to do that. They have other things going on in their lives, or health means something different to them, or they're...
I agree, that's fine. It's not someone else's health is not necessarily your business. And that's fine, but then the thing is that the people that don't follow those healthier choices often complain about being really tired, or they have more health issues that could be mitigated by making healthier life choices. Like there's this thing of, yes, someone else's health is none of my business, but then I don't want to hear you complaining about how unfair the world is because you either can't find clothes in your size or God, I don't know. There's just there's costs to being obese, and I'm not saying that getting fit or getting healthy is easy, and I'm not saying that you have to care about getting healthy or getting fit. It's just then I don't necessarily want to hear you complain about things that are a result of you not caring about those things, you know? Here's something that I feel is a little bit of a comparison. My sister is very beauty conscious. My sister has like this 800 step skincare routine. I don't. I wash my face and I wear sunscreen, and that's about it. I don't like wearing makeup. I don't like the way it feels on my skin. And so when we're out, my sister is continually complimented on how beautiful she is. And I almost never get a compliment. That's okay. You know why? Because I had decided that optimizing my beauty was not important to me. And as a result, I am not noticed as much. My sister, who does focus on optimizing her beauty, does get far more compliments. Does that mean I'm oppressed for not getting more compliments? No, it means that we have different priorities.
Focusing on their mental health, and they don't give a shit what they eat right now. So like the only sort of like 10 simple tricks, life hacks that we're going to give you is just like mind your own house, and whatever other people are doing is really not any of your business.
Totally. I will say, Anna,
I would agree, but I will also say that if someone is bringing up something that they feel is unfair but is related to their actions and their lifestyle choices, then they have made it my business and I can make a comment on it.
anecdotally, I have a good friend who is on Social Security disability.
Mm-hmm.
She lives in low-income housing where they do not have kitchens in their apartments. They just have microwaves, and they have like big roach problems, right, in her building. So she can't and doesn't keep fresh food in the house, and also she doesn't have the money for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
She is also diabetic, and she has found TV dinners that she can afford that don't spike her blood sugar. So she eats like banquet frozen meals. That is the healthiest choice that woman could possibly make.
Right.
And that is a significant leap forward for her own management of her own diabetes. And that is a big part of what all of our sort of public health campaigns are like. Definitely don't do this. Under no circumstances should you do this. And I'm like, that's actually like the best she has done in the 10 years that I have known her.
She does not need your 7-page long email about how has she tried switching to an all meat diet from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. every night. Like this is not what people actually need. If that's your diet and you're all venison all the time, have a blast, my friend. But that is not going to work for everybody.
Yeah. If, this friend of mine pays her rent, pays her phone bill, and at the end of that has $40 left for the month for food, yes, she will be eating banquet dinners. And no, she can't make your like cool zucchini noodles that you found in the New York Times.
Yeah.
Like I say that as someone who makes a lot of zucchini noodles and a lot of New York Times recipes.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
putting a farmer's market in her neighborhood is not what she needs.
Right. She needs like food stamps that cover more than $18 a month.
Exactly.
And she needs some fucking celebration of her accomplishment of like figuring out how to manage an incredibly complex chronic illness on like $0. Right?
Yeah.
Like she.
So this comes down to, yes, and this is what we talk about when we talk about how there's some systemic infrastructure issues around the obesity problem. And from her situation, yes, she's done the best she can. Now, here's the thing. If she went on social media and complained that it's impossible for her to lose weight, only saying that she eats these TV dinners or microwavable dinners, and that's why she can't ever lose weight. The issue isn't that she can't lose weight, it's that she doesn't have the tools to lose weight. And that's I think where the issue comes in, is this: it's impossible for me to lose weight. No, it's not. You just don't have the resources to lose weight, which is something that is very different from saying it's impossible for me to lose weight. This is, okay, clearly there are issues in the Social Security disability benefits that people get. This poor woman should not have to live in a place with a cockroach infestation and only have access to a microwave. That's a whole conversation that can be had, but it's shut down if she says it's impossible for her to lose weight. We don't even get to that. And it's not that we need to have all of the context, but the way things are framed makes a difference.
It's like fully like dietary health MacGyver.
Yeah, no kidding.
With that stuff.
So eat as much venison or as little venison as you require.
Enjoy your however you eat as your hobby.
Yeah, and leave Lizzo alone.
And tune it. I mean, like, I feel like I'm so excited about the conversations that we have had, that we're going to continue to have, right, on this podcast. I'm so excited to talk to you all about, like, not just the world of weight stigma, but also the world of, like, wellness companies that are making their money off of, you know, sort of our insecurities, right? And the ways that they are sort of perpetuating those. I'm super interested to like have these conversations about sort of, again, like the role of capitalism and class and race and ability and all of that sort of stuff on health and wellness. And I'm really excited to like have a conversation that is like pretty dramatically underserved.
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention to any of that. I had another window open where I'm ordering a jade egg off of goop.com. Really sorry. You're just going to have to repeat that, please.
All right, so that's pretty much the end of that. This will be interesting to go through. I will definitely be having some sort of research tab open for anything that may be relevant to research in the future. And I think that honestly their problem is that, one, there's, like we've seen with a lot of fat acceptance, a lot of the fat acceptance movement, is there's this projection of thought crimes onto other people that does not help the situation. And I think that it often feels like the FA and the anti-FA movement are having two different conversations simultaneously while like trying to talk to each other, and that's where I feel like it's happening here, is like that talk of the woman that can only have TV dinners. Definitely that's an issue, and that's something that is beyond her control. Limited finances, she's on disability, she's in low income housing that has a roach infestation. Those are all things that need to be addressed. That doesn't make it, the issue is that then you would say it's impossible for her to lose weight. Let's pump the brakes on that. It's not impossible for her to lose weight. It's that her resources are severely limited and she doesn't have the ability to expand them. So there's clearly some failing in the social safety nets that needs to be addressed. Then that could be something that unites the two sides of, clearly this is an issue. This woman is having to live below a standard of living that people should have to live. And we can, as a populace, work together to make that better for those people. But unfortunately, we get bogged down in the minutia of, see, she can't control that she's fat, and then it becomes the argument, rather than this poor woman is having to live below a standard of living that anyone should have to live at. And this is where I think, and I'm going to generalize a little bit here, But there are other social justice movements that does this same thing where we get bogged down in the minutia of shit. And it's like, how about everyone just focuses on one thing? You'd be surprised at what the general populace can do if they are united. But and companies and politicians will also feed into this, is that it encourages that separation and that division, because then it's easier for people that are united to slip in what they want. So when you're too busy with your fucking infighting and you're too married to your own ideology, it creates division. And unfortunately, I'm going to be part of that division right now, because I think a lot of what you're saying here is wrong. And unfortunately, this I'm sorry, but even your anecdote of that, like, this is not a fatness issue. This is a disability issue and a human rights issue, and that woman needs help. But we're not going to get to that. We're not going to get to ensuring that she at least has a little kitchenette or anything, or that the roach infestation is addressed, or any of that, because the focus is you've made it on what she eats and her weight, instead of her living conditions that prevent her from having healthy foods to eat, which is the true issue there. But I could ramble on, but we're gonna leave it here, and we're gonna go ahead and do another year in the TikTok starting next week. I don't really have much to say about anything that's gone on this week. I had a couple of interviews. It's been kind of a busy week for me, actually, now that I think about it. I've had a couple of interviews. I had to take Lily to the vet for her checkup, and the vet really kind of pissed me off and treated me like it was stupid, and not at all like the visits I've had at that vet for the past 5 years. This woman in particular was really fucking rude. And then I found out that the vet that I had been going to, because I only have to take her in once a year, has become part of a chain, and that kind of explains things, because there was an entire staff turnover at the vet, and everyone was fucking rude, and I was constantly being upsold. Like, they really were pushing on this one test that they couldn't really give me a decent answer as to why my dog needed it, but it would double my bill. And I'm finding a new vet, but I could go on a whole tangent about that vet visit, because it pissed me off so fucking much. And the vet was super fucking judgy, and there were a number of things that pissed me off about it. And the vet essentially, my dog has been tested for this certain disease many times throughout her life, because she has certain hallmarks of it, but she's been tested several times, and it's always come back negative. And so I let her know that when she suggested that Lily had that issue, and I'm like, she's been tested like 7 times for that disease. And I want to be clear, I'm not against having her tested again, because she's older now. It could, like, you never know when it's going to reach therapeutic levels. Like, I don't know, and it's not like I'm unwilling to have her tested again. But she looks up her record, and apparently, like, she suggested several things, and I'm like, that should have been recorded. It's like their fucking records have been messed with or something, because a lot of the things just from the last vet visit were not recorded. And she's like, well, I have no record of her being tested for that here. And I'm like, bullshit. She's been tested at least twice at this clinic. I'm pretty sure she's been tested closer to 4 times over the years at this clinic, but I know 2 for sure. And she was like, well, we don't have, like, I'm lying. She pissed me off. Ugh, I need to find a new vet. But anyway, I'm gonna leave it here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.